Welcome to Rhyme and Reason, hosted by Dr. Barry. Today, Barry welcomes host of the Real Raw podcast, Bella A. Verita. And now, here's Dr. Barry Reiman.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Barry. How are you today?
You know, if I was any better, it might be illegal.
Oh boy.
This is episode. Let me see if I can count as far as we've come. 1, 2. This is episode 3.
It's pretty impressive you can count that high.
I think it's impressive we made it this far. To be honest with you, it was very questionable. You know, from the jump, from the train to the plane. Listen, we're hopefully, what I would say, we have a super exciting guest today.
I'm very excited about this one. I mean,
yeah,
with all of them, but this one, her story really resonates.
Yes, pre-show, you got to meet her, Zach. I have known Bella now for a hot, 1 month, I would say. But, the energy that she puts out is uncompromised. I haven't seen that in a person in a long time. She just, when she opens her mouth, she just makes you want to be better. And I don't even know if it's what she says or if it's just how she says it, but
her energy tell, even over this platform was very strong.
Yeah, I mean, you could just tell she's a special person. So, and just to give a little background, Bella, she is the host of the Real Raw. She is part of the Unblinded Mastery group, which is a self-mastery, self-development type group. And I've been honored to actually take a part in that over the past month or so to really see what they're doing. She grew up in an alcoholic family and actually moved out of her home when she was a senior in high school. And I'm going to let her tell you her story, but, it really is incredible. So if we could bring Bella on.
Hello.
I hope you're not you don't get uncomfortable when people pay you compliments, but, you really are, and I don't want to sound too cheesy, but you are just a ball of energy, and I can feel it through the computer. We've never met in person, and I'm hoping that the listeners will be able to feel it as well.
Well, thank you guys. I was listening backstage. My eyes were welling up with tears just with the beautiful things. And, I think in life is, life can take us down. And anytime that we hear something great about ourselves that somebody else is saying, and it's, one of the indispensable elements that we talk about is acknowledgement. It is so powerful. It is palpable. It hits the heart. And so as I was sitting back there and just listening, I am so immensely grateful because you never know, where people are. And, there have been some challenging days, and just hearing you guys' words just pierced my heart. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I mean,
honored to be here.
I know in real life, it's supposed to feel really good when somebody sings your praises, right?
Yeah.
That I'm aware of, and I personally have done, I would consider in my lifetime a tremendous amount of work on self-esteem and praise and accepting compliments, but I can't think of a time where I feel more uncomfortable when somebody is singing my praises. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if you can kind of enlighten us. I'm sure you've done some work on that too. Yeah, I mean, what is it about that? Someone says something, I'm cool with, if you want to say something negative about me, I could take that on the chin and I'm okay with that. But when someone says nice stuff, I kind of curl up and, get uncomfortable.
Yeah, Dr. Barry, it's about receiving. So anytime that you're, we're unable to receive a compliment, because chances are even if someone buys you something or, wants to do something for you, that's all in the bucket of receiving. And really and truly, I believe we cannot be good givers if we can't be good receivers. Because if we are not receiving somebody's compliment, right? If we're not receiving their acknowledgement it's really a take for them. Because as you guys were, paying those beautiful acknowledgments, and I was definitely receiving them, but as you were sharing them, I imagine for you, it felt good to share, right? And so
100%.
imagine if I got on here and I was like, no, that's not true. Like, no, that's not me you're talking about. It's like, that takes something from you. It takes something from your heart. And that's not fair. So I say to people all the time is, anytime we don't fully receive someone's compliment or someone's gift, it's actually a take for them. And so, and it is just a practice. And sometimes it's just simply, just thank you. And Sean always taught me too, is, putting my hand on my heart. So as I was listening to the things behind the stage, I literally had my hand in my heart so that I could receive them. So I could be in a place of receiving them and receiving them in the heart.
I'm glad you brought Sean up, and we're going to get into him in just a few minutes. Zach and I are curious. Zach has never met you before, other than the 10 or 15 minutes we got to spend with you, prior to the show launching. Can you tell Zach and the audience a little bit more about yourself, how you got involved with what you do, kind of what shaped you, what it was like for you growing up in an alcoholic family? We have tons of listeners on here that, aren't just struggling with substance use, but are also much like you, grew up surrounded by substance use. So.
Yeah. So I grew up in Texas. I'm from Austin, Texas. And my father was in the military. I am a proud daughter of a veteran. He served in the Vietnam War and in Desert Storm. And, he came back from, those wars and very traumatized, especially coming back from Vietnam. And I have no idea what he went through. And so I don't judge him for his abuse, but he has chosen a path that helps him cope with whatever it was that happened over there. And, so growing up, he drank a lot, smoked a lot, did a lot of coke. Now that he's gotten older, he's tamed things down and pretty much just smokes every day, which is awesome. But growing up in that environment, it was very unstable. I never knew what side of my father I was going to get. On one side, he could be, very loving, very caring, and then when the substances came in, it would be, a very different side. And I never knew, what I was going to get. And all I ever wanted as a child was stability, was love and family. My mom had addictions in the, sex area, a little bit of alcohol as well. And so I just never quite knew where my place was. And at a very young age, I would say for me personally, is I always had a strong faith. I didn't grow up in any religion. I didn't understand or know anything about, Bible and different religions, but I knew that there was a higher power. I knew that, there was a God that I believed in, and I continued to, lean on my faith anytime that, things would get chaotic or I wouldn't know, what to do. I ran away from home quite a bit. Going to friends and families' homes. But I knew that I always knew that there would be a better way. I always knew if it was, the pits of hell right now, like tomorrow, there has to be light. There just has to be. And I always lived for what was the light of the next day? What was the light of the next day? And I would say, even as an adult and being an entrepreneur my entire life, is there's lots of pits of hell in entrepreneurship as well. And even in those pits, it's to remember that, the next moment can be better. The next day can be better. It's not always going to feel as bad as it feels right now.
That is such a remarkable statement. It's not always going to feel as bad as it feels right now. And, it goes into one of the oldest sayings in the book, tomorrow's another day. right? And the sting that we feel at this moment, as bad as it might be, as hurt as we might be, as angry as we might be, you just got to make it through, right? Someone told me a long time ago that feelings aren't facts.
Yep.
And the good things with feelings is that feelings change. So, what I was feeling at this time, exactly 1 year ago today to the hour, I have no freaking clue what I was feeling. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? Yeah. And, there's lots of stuff that kind of goes into this, and we can kind of go down a rabbit hole of people who, commit suicide, right, over feelings. And what do they say about suicide? It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Yeah. And, so a lot can get into this. Can you tell us a little bit about, most people don't decide to pack up and leave home while they're a senior in high school. What prompted that? Why did you do that?
Yeah, so it was, the spring break of my senior year, and things had just gotten really bad at home. I was fighting with my dad all the time. And I am not a little bit strong-headed myself. Admit, I really do have red hair, so I'm a little bit fiery. And things just, I kept butting heads with my dad, and it was just intolerable. And so I decided, and actually this is part of my story that I didn't share, is I had dropped out. I started selling drugs and moved out all nice. At the same time. So that's how I got my career started in sales. I started selling. I started by selling my dad's weed, and then I started getting my own supply. I was like, oh, this is working out. Until I got a knock at the door. And when I answered the door, I was staring down the barrel of a shotgun. And that was the day that I knew my life needed to change. And that was when, not long after that, someone introduced me to the network marketing company. And that's where I knew, I had to start making decisions for myself. Because up until that point, I had blamed everything on my dad. It was his fault, and growing up, and my mommy daddy stories and all of this stuff. And, when I held that, when I looked down the barrel of that shotgun, I was like, nobody is going to save me. It is going to be my own decisions, the own choices that I make. And I had decided to, go back to school. I stayed on my own, but I was working at, Sonic and the airport and all of this until I graduated high school, until I was able to, do something in network marketing. And again, because I knew there had to be a better way. And I've lived on my own ever since.
Incredible. And Zach, I don't know what you're thinking when you're hearing this, but if you can kind of enlighten us, I'd like to bring you in here for a second.
It's so, our stories are very, very similar. Alcoholic family, left home the first day of my junior year of high school. It sounds like you found your way a lot sooner than I did. My road was very windy up until a much later age, and it was all because I still held on to those mommy, daddy, look what happened. This was how I was raised. This is all learned behavior that I had to unlearn. And it took a long time, but it's so familiar. And watching you get choked up when you spoke about your father, same thing to this day. When I have the compassion I have for my mother's story now, and what she had to go through, and doing the best that she could, the forgiveness came a lot later for me.
Yeah. And I think it's, and I don't know about you, Zachary, but I feel like it's, sometimes a daily journey, because, on some days it is much easier to blame my father than it is to choose a positive mindset or to choose something positive. It's so much easier to blame him. And sometimes that harder choice is to, you know, make that choice of forgiveness, make that choice of compassion, and so that, you know, I can choose a better life for myself. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story.
That's a really good point. So today's theme is self-mastery. Okay.
Ooh, I like it.
You know, that sounds awesome. And I think we all want to learn self-mastery, but if you could help us kind of understand, you know, what self-mastery is and
please.
how you in particular got involved with it, you know, what it's done for your life, because you're involved with some pretty impressive human beings. And we'll talk about Sean Callaghy in a minute. You know, I had no idea who he was until about a month ago. And in my eyes, you know, he is on that or approaching that level of a Tony Robbins type person, who we, you know, most people know who Tony Robbins is. So can you tell us a little bit about, like, you know, what led you down this path? What is self-mastery? How you got involved?
Yeah. So I would say, you know, self-mastery has been my life's journey, you know, starting from, you know, in high school and to, you know, continue to choose, you know, and to choose a better way. And I think, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, for me, and I'll say, you know, the disclaimer, you know, my views are not the views of Reiman, Reason, and all of that, because I do talk very spiritually and I do believe in God. So that's the disclaimer. Those are my own personal views. And, you know, and I believe God is whatever, like God could be the tree, the rock, like whatever it is, you know, for anybody, as long as, you know, there's something other than self. And so I think my self-mastery started at that young age when I knew there was a higher power. I knew there was this God. I didn't know what it was or what it meant, but I just knew there had to be a force for good in the world, for, you know, a lack of a different way to put it. And I would say, you know, the self-mastery comes in is a daily practice. Because I will say, and I'll be, you know, super transparent, because I'm unblinded. We're always transparent. A couple of months ago, I went through some really dark times. And, you know, and contemplated, you know, I didn't want to be here anymore. Not that I would actually, you know, do anything to harm myself, but begging God to just please take me out. And what I realized was I got away from my self-mastery practices. So for me, because of things that I've been through in my life, is self-mastery is a daily practice. It's not, and just like, you know, if you have gone to AA, right, or anything, it's like, I'm not going to drink right now, right? I'm not going to do a drug right now. It's not, I'm not going to drink today, right? Or I'm not going to drink this year. It's a moment by moment choice. And I believe self-mastery is very much the same. It is a moment by moment choice to choose to master self in this moment. And the times that I get away, and I have a daily practice of, you know, every day I write out a prayer, you know, my journal, I write out a daily prayer. I write out daily I am statements about myself, because I don't naturally have a, you know, winning champion mindset. You know, we've talked about Sean. Sean innately has a champion mindset. He doesn't doubt himself. He never, I never hear him say anything negative about himself. He never doubts himself. He, you know, he's an athlete. He's committed to winning. And even if he loses, there's very rarely any focus on that, right? He's like, okay, let's go. What's next? What's next? What's the next win? So he doesn't have the same, what do you call that in the, when you bet and you're like the underdog, what's the word I'm anyway, there's a word I'm looking for, but you know what I mean? He doesn't have the same faults, right? Because we're all uniquely imperfectly imperfect. And, you know, some people, I believe, are just like, they're born with kind of that champion mindset. They don't doubt themselves. I'm not that way. So self-mastery has to be a daily practice. It has to be a moment by moment practice because, I grew up in an alcoholic family. So, I have some of those tendencies within me. So if I'm not mastering myself every day and every moment, I will slip just like that. So that self-mastery is like the daily AMs. And I'm reading a book right now called Positive Intelligence. And I'm learning that we have a self-saboteur part of the brain and we have a sage part of the brain, and they're constantly at war. And if you're feeding the self-sabotage, which can be your victim mentality, or, maybe like some people like to please or overachieving or control. And if we're feeding that self-sabotage part of the brain, it will take over and we'll be unhappy. But if we're feeding that sage part of the brain, then that will overcome those self-saboteurs and we'll stop self-sabotaging ourselves. And so having, daily practices, whatever they are, for you, mine again is daily prayer, is I read, something in a positive book, and I've got to do daily IAMs every day, because if not, like, I will get off track like nobody's business. And so I think it's like, to answer that question, it's moment by moment and an everyday choice.
So I think I heard you say, and without actually saying these words, but and coming from as a doctor of psychology, right? We all have that negative self-talk.
Yeah.
Right? That negative self-talk, however it's gotten there, whatever the messages are, whether it came from your childhood and you were always told you're never enough, or you don't look good enough, or you're not skinny enough, or you're not in shape enough, or you're not blah, 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 right? And over and over and over again, we hear these messages or heard these messages. And now, and I think this ties into what we talked about right when we opened the show today, is when your head has that negative self-talk, but you're being given positive self-talk from others, there's almost that war right there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when we're so used to that negative self-talk, we get really uncomfortable when we hear positive things. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong more times than I'm right, and that's not negative self-talk, that's a fact. If we achieve or continue to achieve self-mastery, does that negative mindset, that negative self-talk start to dissipate, and that sage, or whatever you called it, part of the brain start to take over? Like, look, as human beings, I don't care if you're addicted or not addicted. I don't care what region of the world you live in. I don't care what your background is, what your childhood was like, how your upbringing was. At the end of the day, as human beings, all we really want to do is feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And my opinion again, but the actions that we take on a daily basis typically are motivated in helping us achieve better feelings about ourselves.
Yeah.
Or feeling better in general. We don't do things on purpose to make ourselves feel bad.
Right.
And it's funny, working in the field of substance use disorders, right? You hear it often said that people who are using drugs, they call it their fix.
Yeah.
Right? You've heard that before. Mm-hmm. Zach, you've heard that before. I need my fix. When really, the fix that we're choosing to fix ourselves with in the long run makes us worse. It makes us feel worse about ourselves. Physically, it makes us feel worse. But somehow there's some kind of twisted notion that if we just use more of that fix, we're going to feel better. And so, I'd like to kind of bring stuff up, on this platform like that, because I think there's a common misconception. What we're choosing to fix that negative self-talk with, what we're choosing to help ourselves with, has actually done more damage than good.
Yeah.
So you come along and you are now involved with this unblinded mastery, this unblinded academy. I still have no idea, like, first, okay, tell the audience a little bit about Unblinded, tell them who Sean Callaghy is, okay? And then I want to hear how you got unblinded.
Okay.
I want to hear how you got involved at this level with this organization.
Beautiful. So before I go into that, I do want to talk because as a doctor of psychology, I am sure you have read and or heard of the book Psycho-Cybernetics. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So just to tie up the what we were talking about before and the self-mastery and the positive talk and all of that is if you remember the story about the missile. The missile. So when a missile is launched, how does it hit its target?
Head on?
No, it's got to go off target to get to the target. So in the story in the Psycho-Cybernetics talks about the missile. It's got to go off track and it goes to get back on track, and then it keeps going. Then it goes off track, and alarm goes off to get it back on track. And the only way a missile hits its target is by going off track.
Off track.
Yeah. And so I share that because as human beings, I think sometimes we can expect ourselves to be perfect, and to know that, you'll go off track sometimes. Some days, some moments, you might not have self-mastery, right? But to know that when you get off track, it's just a warning signal to go back on track, because I know we can, and I have in the past, beat myself up when I've gotten off track. And to remember we're humans, right? And to be able to get back on track. And there's also a story that the eagle is the most precise animal on the planet. The eagle hits its target from the sky to get a fish in the water, and diving down, an eagle hits its target, is the most accurate animal on the planet. And do you know how often an eagle hits its target? 51% of the time. 50, and it is the most accurate. So I share that in final into the previous topic is because in the day, if we are winning at least 51% of the time in our self-mastery, we're doing pretty effing good. So
you could say fucking on here.
Okay, we're doing pretty fucking good. If we're winning in the day 51% of the time, we're doing pretty good. So wanted to wrap that up there. And then, coming on to Unblinded is I got invited to The Real Raw, and which is the show that I am now the co-host of. A friend of mine, called me up one night. It was 10 o'clock at night in Austin, Texas. And I used to have a staffing company for salespeople. So I would staff people in the coaching consulting space. I considered myself pretty darn good at sales. So my friend calls me and he's like, listen, there's this company, there's this guy, Sean. I want to do something with him, but I know we're friends and we're kind of doing stuff already. But they have this influence mastery, and he was talking about it. And at the end of this hour-long conversation, I'm like, how do I get involved? How do I check this out? So I bought their, $1,000 influence mastery program. I was like, this is pretty good, but I could definitely make it better. And then I came on The Real Raw, and I saw something that was different. From the moment I came onto The Real Raw, I was like, this is not sales. I'd never met anyone more heart-centered, that more got the yes with such integrity, and just the heart and the feeling of the show. I was like, there's something here. So I became a client of Unblinded, and I went through their elite program, and then I started traveling with Unblinded. Then grew into, now I'm the co-host of the show. Sean is also my significant other, which is why I live in New Jersey now. And so yes, so I am all in Unblinded now.
That is incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about Sean and how, what his mission is, how he got to that point where Unblinded became a thing, a little bit about his history too for the audience.
So, Sean is a top 100 national trial attorney. He he grew up here in New Jersey, and he was an extremely great baseball player. Division I athlete, played for Columbia, was a 4-year starter at Columbia, and then discovered that he had retinus pigmentosa. And so he was going to go blind. And right towards the end of his college year, really started to affect him. And he, when he graduated college, he sat by the phone, waited for the phone to ring to go play professional baseball, and the phone never rang. And so he's like, what am I going to do now? And he knew he wanted to have a family. He knew he was going to go blind. His grandfather was blind. And so he knew he wanted to provide for himself. So he decided to go to law school and become a lawyer. And he's never identified himself as an attorney. It was just like that was the path. And when he graduated graduated college, he was recruited by one of the top law firms in New Jersey, worked there for 6 months, when he started to see, like, if he stayed there, what his path looked like, how long it took to become partner. And even the people that were partners weren't really financially free, and they were still working, 90 hours a week. And so he's like, this is not going to make sense. And then he says, and he also learned that they don't teach you in law school that when you become a lawyer, you still got to figure out how to get business. And so 6 months after he started at that law firm, he quit. He was $100,000 in debt. He quit the law firm. Nobody quits this law firm, right? Nobody does. They offered him psychiatric help because they thought he was like crazy for wanting to quit. $100,000 in debt, quit the law firm after 6 months, and went to work building his own law firm. And within 2 years, he had a 40-person law firm, bought his first beach house in Long Beach Island, New Jersey. Now he owns 2 of them in Long Beach Island, New Jersey. So he ended up selling that first law firm, and then kind of retiring, wanted to do coaching, but then realized, it's a nights and weekends job. And, he had small kids at the time. And so he wanted to be with them. So he, put that on hold, built the second law firm, which he still has today, which he is a business owner, not operator. And now, went in on Unblinded full time, because there is a formula for money, time, and magic. And it's process mastery, self mastery, and influence mastery. Because if you don't have the ability to cause people to say yes, your money is at the stake of somebody else. And so he created this whole formula, and now Unblinded is mission is 1 + 1 = 1 trillion relationships. And so how we can build business together on building relationships and shared experience.
That's really incredible. Our co-founder at Recovery Unplugged, Andrew Sawson, has been huge on self-development, self-mastery, the whole Tony Robbins, and he, all on his own now, has brought Unblinded to within our community, and it's really making a huge difference for, the 10 or 11 people that have taken part over the past month. And it's really incredible. I've had the chance to speak with Sean. I was on your Real Raw podcast, and he was on there as well. And he's just a brilliant man. You're a brilliant woman. And, this is like, and, to hear that's who you moved to New Jersey for, more power to you, right? You want to talk about a power couple? If I've ever seen one, that would be it. Right, Zach? I mean,
100%.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege. And I'll say, this too, the team at Unblinded, I have never been part of a team so committed to winning and people getting their outcomes. Like the level, Sean never says no to any. Someone wanted to have a meeting with him the other night at 11:15 at night, and he said yes. Like he is so about service, and Adam and Fernando and the entire team are so committed to the service of people so that they can. I've never met anyone that's more committed to other people's dreams than this entire team. And it really truly is an honor and a privilege to, be a part of this team.
That's fantastic. As far as, our audience is typically in the recovery, addiction, mental health space. What would be, in your opinion, the tie between recovery and self-mastery? I mean, they're on two, from what I could see, two planes that are traveling in the same direction, and sometimes they cross and sometimes they don't. From what I've seen for the groups that have been participating with Unblinded, you have your fair share of people who are in recovery, and you also have your fair share of aspiring entrepreneurs that are really looking to take either their company or their position with sales or whatever the case is, to another level. How does self-mastery and recovery kind of intersect and feed off each other?
Yeah, well, I think, in my opinion is, we can't recover if we don't have self-mastery, right? Because it that self-mastery says, no, I'm not going to do that drug right now. No, I'm going to not have that drink. No, I'm not going to do that thing. And that mastery over self to put down whatever that addiction is that we are addicted to. It takes an enormous amount of self-mastery. And I want to, to even just acknowledge for anyone that is here or listening that is on that road to recovery, that has, been on that road, that is new to that road or thinking about that road, is it takes an enormous amount of courage, in my opinion, to say, to put down that thing that like gives the fix, right? That gives that temporary, like feeling good, the courage to put that down, to choose self first, to choose self-mastery first, takes an enormous amount of courage. And I just want to acknowledge, all the people that have chosen that road and that choose that road daily. Kudos to you, and your strength and your courage, and knowing that it is that mastery of self every day that gets you on that road and continues on that road. And so I think they are deeply intersected.
Thank you. I mean, you mentioned earlier today off camera that you no longer drink. And
I do want to give a disclaimer, like, for the most part, and I do occasionally, I do want to give it, because I used to like drink, have wine with my friends all the time. And I don't choose that anymore. It is I used to drink because other people were around me and and I didn't want to feel left out. So for me, it is now, a conscious, choice. I may have like a glass of wine a month. I had dinner with my dad. I did have a glass of wine, with him. So I do want to make that disclaimer, but it is not a need to fit in choice anymore. So
no, and that's totally fine, and not meant to put you on the spot like that. You've never claimed to be in recovery or have, maintained any type of abstinence whatsoever. The recovery community a lot of times is taught that self-will is not going to keep them sober. Okay. Yeah. That we have to rely on multiple factors to maintain long-lasting or true recovery, right? And true recovery comes in what we're taught in the recovery community, whether it's, and there's multiple pathways to get there, but, we are taught that it's not just about, white knuckling it. Okay. Yeah. It's not just about hanging on for dear life. Now, there are going to be times where there are people who are early in recovery, they get put in compromising positions. And at that moment, at that time, they will have to hang on for dear life. Okay. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, which goes back even further to what we talked about, that no matter what we're feeling at this moment, in 5 minutes from now, we could be feeling differently. Yep. Right. So we don't want to cash in on something that's going to be permanent when we know that feelings aren't facts and they pass, and we can experience new feelings in 30 seconds from now. You have gotten to a place in your life, and if you're comfortable, can you talk a little bit? And I know you're all about being vulnerable and transparent. You brought up something, what I consider to be a really big deal a few minutes ago, and we kind of brushed by it and you kind of brushed over it, but you talked about, and listen, from the outside, and one of the things that we learn in life is we cannot judge our insides on other people's outsides.
Right.
Okay. And that's a really deep statement because most of us are guilty of that with the way social media is and how we perceive others. And, oh, they have the white picket fence and the happy family and the 2.5 kids and their bank account must be filled with tons of money. And where the fuck am I? Right. So, but you brought something up just 10 or 15 minutes ago that a few months ago you were in a really dark place. Right? Where your mindset was, and you were careful to say, I did not want to harm myself, which is always good to say in the presence of a doctor of psychology. Baker acting is not fun. No, I'm kidding. But you were in a place where you were in a pretty dark place.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, Bella, from the outside, right, it looks like you don't belong in that dark place you were in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And if you're not comfortable, you could say, shut up, Dr. Barry. I don't
No,
want to
I
talk
am.
about this right now.
Listen, it is of service because I know that there's probably someone listening that is, probably always, happy because that is my nature. Like I'm happy. People say I have good energy all the time. And so, it gets mistaken that I don't have dark times too. And so people don't normally, want like, are you doing okay? Or how are you doing? Because they just always assume I'm doing great. And so there's probably someone listening right now that, is always, happy for the most part, but does have, those dark moments. And I will say also, because I don't know if there's, women listening, but our hormones definitely play a part of it. And I will say right before my cycle, is that day before is usually pretty dark. It is like, I don't want to be here. I'm worthless, but I track my cycle because I know when I start to feel like, I'm fat and ugly, I'm like, something's not quite right. What's happening. And I know a dark day is coming. And so it goes back to remember, and I'm constantly, my self-talk all day is like, tomorrow's going to be better. Tomorrow's going to be better. Tomorrow's going to be better. Like I want to slam my head in a door right now. Right now, everything is falling apart. The world is ending. Everything is terrible. My boyfriend hates me. All my friends hate me. Like my life is over. I have nothing to live for. But that thought's happening at the same time. Like tomorrow's going to be better. 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 And it is a struggle and some times are worse than others, but I would say a couple months ago is just with the enormous amount of stress with work, enormous amount of traveling, my partner and I work together, so that also causes some friction, and there was some stuff happening personally that is like, how are we going to get through this? If anyone who's been in a relationship for a long time or any amount of time, you go through different patches where it's like, Jesus, is this worth it? And then you get to the other side and it's like, yes, it is. But all of that, has an effect. And, and even in during those times, it goes back to like, it doesn't have to stay this way. It isn't always going to be this way. And that's how I got, back into my spiritual practice. And you said, you're talking about like white knuckling it. I don't believe we can do anything on our own. I really don't. We need that prayer, whatever it is that you pray to, right? It doesn't matter. But as long as you know that there's something out there that in those dark moments that you can lean on and ask for help, as I believe is the key to, getting through those dark moments. Cause I don't think that we can do it on our own.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think that there are people in the audience today that needed to hear what you said. There are people today that are listening or will be listening later if they download the episode or whatever the case is, where they're in a dark place. Okay. Life and especially those who are in early recovery, or even those who have been in recovery for many, many years, or even if you're not in recovery, right? We don't get sober. We don't enter into recovery and then expect to have every day to be roses and butterflies. That, mastery, self-mastery, recovery, coping skills, tools in our toolbox, all these different things that we have are there to support us, not just in the good times, but in the bad times, right?
Yeah.
That life happens. I could say with 100% certainty that I've had some really dark days, right? The one thing that I've done perfectly is I haven't killed myself, right? I haven't picked up a substance in almost 26 years. And there were plenty of days where I wanted to. Okay. Zach, I'm certain that you've had some dark days. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
But you remind me a lot of Bella because you're always freaking happy, even though you're not. But that is the presentation that you give to the world. You're reliable, you're dependable, you have a smile on your face, you're cracking jokes, you're sarcastic. And I'm pretty much the same way too. And I don't know, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, and Bella, you as well, but I think sometimes that exterior is our defense.
Yeah.
Right? Because who wants to meet somebody that's kind of moping around and is sad? And, what's the most common answer with, hey, how's it going? How you doing? Good.
Good.
Fine. Right? And what do we know about the word fine? Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Right?
I'm never going to use that word again. Not that I
How you doing?
Do.
I'm fine. No,
fine.
You're really not. And then there's like an old joke, like for people who are in recovery, who are joining this self-mastery pathway, right? That when you ask somebody how you're doing, when you ask somebody how they're doing, you got to make sure you have like 5 minutes to hear them out because they're going to be like, today I'm feeling like a little insecure. I'm, just not, I'm all in my feels. I'm just not having a great day. I don't know what it is. It could be the moon, the sun, and the stars. It could be my cycle. It's probably my cycle. Well, maybe, no, that's in a week. Okay. So it's not that. Like, we're going to really process this stuff.
Yeah.
Zach, what are your thoughts?
It's interesting that when you said, Bella, about the mindfulness when you wake up in the morning and the exercises that you do to, start your day to get the positive thinking and all of that going. I have similar exercises I do in the morning with my mind. I notice when I'm not doing them, when I'm just doing them to do them rather than focusing on them, then my day can tend to get a little bit more negative. And sometimes I'm unable to, or unwilling to pause in that moment to reset my mind and say, all right, starting over, my day is going to be good. I'm going to go through this day with a positive outlook, so it's very interesting. It sounds very like Dr. Barry was saying, like a parallel kind of path that can intersect between what you do and then what the recovery community does. Because it just sounds very similar to me. And I'm just very, very intrigued by everything you're saying. Mm-hmm. And I can relate to a lot of it.
So let me ask you this, Bella. What happens when the self-master fails? What type of adjustments really need to be made at that point?
Yeah, and it does. And listen, I mean, I during that couple months where, it was really dark, I wasn't doing any of that. I wasn't doing my daily prayer work. I wasn't doing my daily I wasn't doing any of it. And so, and I go back to that missile story is I was so off track and I was depressed and I was angry all the time. And that's when the warning lights went off of there's something wrong here. And, and I personally think I hired a coach also. I think sometimes I don't think we can unstuck ourselves. And so I think investing in, coaching or someone or counseling or whatever, because it's very hard when we the further down the pit we go, it can be very hard to unstuck ourselves. And so I started working with a coach that I pay, and she helped me unstuck myself. And then I started doing the things that I remember to do, like, my prayer and my daily IMs and all of the things. And so I think, coaching or counseling or, reaching out for some support, and not support to a friend, because, our friends usually want to tell us like, you're okay and you're great and you're amazing, but really talking to a professional that can help you get you unstuck, I think is, probably one of the greatest tools that we have available in this day and age.
That's really great advice. What's one of the oldest sayings, you hear people say back to the basics, right?
Yep.
There's another saying, if you don't leave the basics, you never have to go back to them. Right. And as humans, the desperate become sweetly willing. And when we get desperate, we're ready to make that change. And then what we do is we make that change and we do everything that we're supposed to do to make that change. And we start to feel better. And then when we start to feel better, guess what we do? We stop doing those things that got us to the place where we were starting to feel better.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason it is, and you can look at different areas of life, right? It could be the gym. Right? I'm going to work out. I'm feeling better. Then you miss a couple days. Then you miss a week. Then you realize you've missed a month. You're on a diet and you've been eating healthy and you've been dropping weight and you've been looking better. And then you have that slice of pizza. And then the next day you have 2 slices of pizza. And then before you know it, a month goes by and you're like, I need to get back on the diet or whatever the case is. Right. But when it comes to like mental health, or emotional wellness, we'll call it, it takes work to be better. And we want everything just to come to us, and we want to be able to snap our fingers and make ourselves feel better. And especially from the mind of an addict or an alcoholic who used to take a substance to change the way they feel in a moment's notice, that connection right there was so powerful that when we let go of that, we don't know how we're going to feel from 1 minute to the next.
Yeah.
Oh, so now you're telling me that I have to pray, I have to journal, I have to write stuff down, I have to talk to people. That's all fine and good. I can do that stuff, but when am I going to feel better? And then the answer is, well, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that if you do those things and you continue to do those things, that eventually you're going to feel better. But the mind of an addict or an alcoholic who's always stuck on instant gratification is, what the fuck does eventually mean? Like, I've been like praying every day and I've been journaling and I have a sponsor and I'm talking to a sponsor and I'm getting on these Zooms every day at 11 o'clock for Unblinded and I'm meeting new people and I'm learning about this and I'm having Tuesday and Thursday and I still don't feel better. Well, Dr. Barry, how long have you been doing it? Oh, it's been like 7 days in a row. Oh, so just 7 days in a row. Well, yeah, 7. I never had to take a pill and wait for 7 days to feel high. So like there's like this disconnect sometimes where, what you're speaking of and what this whole mastery program does is it's a more organic way to achieve goals and find happiness within our life. But listen, it's not the quick fix. None of this is. Not, therapy is not the quick fix, right? You feel better for the hour you're in there, right? But it's all about practice and repetition and practice and repetition. And then eventually, and the key word is eventually, which is a hard word for us to swallow, those of us who like to feel better yesterday, that eventually we have the ability to move forward and reach, and I think you kind of described this, a new level. Joanne just chimed in, 7 days, laugh out loud. Yes. I mean, and I could tell you countless stories of, we bring somebody into our treatment center, okay? Mm-hmm. And they come into our treatment center and they're in there for 7 days, 8 days, 9 days. And Dr. Barry, I just don't think this recovery thing is for me. It's just not working out. I don't feel better. Well, how long were you out there self-destructing? Yeah. I don't know, 10 years, 8, 7, 6, 15 days. Like, it just doesn't happen like that. We have a question. What is the hardest part about self-mastery, Bella?
I love this question. The hardest part about self-mastery is doing it. Like, what's the hardest part about going to the gym? It's like just getting there, right? Like, because once you're at the gym, you'll work out, but the hardest part is getting there. And I think the hardest part about self-mastery is to get ourselves to do the things that make us feel good. And you're talking about instant gratification. Listen, I love instant gratification. Like, I might have, if I have an addiction, I probably have an Amazon addiction. I love when Amazon packages show up at my house. 100% love that. But when it comes to, like, we talked about kind of those dark times, is to get myself back to doing the self-mastery practices. Like, the hardest part about self-mastery is to choose to do the things moment by moment that will make you feel good in a positive way.
So basically, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Whether you feel like it or not, right? Whether you feel like it or not. And let me tell you, like, when you're having those dark times, because it's really funny, in the occasion that, Sean, is, angry about something or something happens, and I'll go, let's pray. I don't want to pray. Like, that's always like, I don't want to pray. And then it's like, okay, let's pray. So our instinct isn't to like, oh, we want to do that thing to make us feel good. Like, no, I want to stay mad. I want to stay here. Okay, let's do something different. So that's that hardest part is making that choice in the moment when you are dark, or something's not going well, or you're pissed off at the world, or you want to punch someone in the face, no matter what it is. But to make that choice to choose something positive, healthy, to choose an I am statement, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you, and the only two words that keep running through my head right now when you're talking is perseverance and discipline.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been working out with a trainer now for over a year, 3 days a week in the morning. I like to go to bed late. I don't like to get up early. Okay. Do you know how many days when my alarm clock goes off on the day of the gym that I actually want to go?
Probably never.
0.
Yeah.
0. I'm thinking in my head, what can I say? Can I text him? Can I tell him, I'm really sore from the day before, or I'm just not, it just never works out.
All the energy we spend wanting to make excuses to get out of doing the things that'll make us actually feel good is astronomical.
Yeah. And then I go, and when I leave, guess how I feel?
Amazing.
Better. Like, oh, you're not going to take it to the level of amazing because he makes me want to vomit every time I'm there, but I feel better.
Yeah.
And
do you walk out
better.
like checking yourself out, being like, "Ooh"?
I mean, I'm like, but that's usually when I get home. I'm swole. All right, one last question, and then we're going to close the show. The audience wants to know if you have any daily practices. I know we already heard about, you were talking about your I am statements and a journal. Do you have any daily practices that kind of keep you sane?
Those are it. I pray daily. The first thing I do when my alarm goes off in the morning is I have a Glorify app. It's Christian based. But I list, if you're not Christian based, something else, like something positive. That whatever you do to connect with your higher spirit, I do that before I get out of bed, before I go to the bathroom. Before I kiss my significant other, anything, I connect with source and spirit first. So I usually will listen to that. It takes about 5 minutes to go through. I do that first. And then I get up, and my first part of my day is, spent with spirit. So I do my prayers. I do my, I read something positive. I do my daily I am statements. I write all of that out. That's the first thing I do. Every single morning, and I work out daily. I think, part of my health, if I'm not working out on a daily basis, it really impacts my mindset as well. And I'd say like those are my daily things. I'm much better in the morning. People talk about like a nighttime routine. My days are always so different. Nights are always so different. I cannot keep a night routine to save my life, but the morning I can definitely keep a routine. So those are about the 3 things that I do.
Love that. So stability, prayer. I pray every morning and every night. That's been a part of my routine ever since I came into recovery, and it's just my way to connect. We are, and I feel this has been just an amazing show. You have been an amazing guest.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I'm sure the audience has gotten a lot out of, you know, what you have talked about. Zach, any closing thoughts before we let Bella go?
No, I just want to piggyback off what you said. I mean, this was very enlightening, and I really gained so much new perspective. So thank you very much.
Yep,
Thank
and
you guys for having me. It really has been an absolute honor and privilege, and to have you guys all part of the Unblinded community. It's so fun to dive into those deep practices with you guys, and you know, everyone over there at Recovery Unplugged is just absolutely a shining, beautiful light in the world, and it really is an honor and privilege to be here. So thank you for having me.
thank you. And I will see you again, I'm sure, sometime this week on some kind of Zoom, because
I'm
I live
sure
my
you
life
will.
on Zoom. And that's it. Thank you so much, Bella.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.